Absolutely great pleasure to meet you, Mayim. And thank you very much for making me cry my eyes out with your directional feature debut.
You're welcome.
Just when I thought I wasn't going to cry anymore, there comes a speech with Dustin Hoffman's character on the bed that seemed like it was one shot. I don't know if it was, but it was close to one shot, and I collapsed. It was so sad.
Yeah, I get a lot of people tell me that about this movie, but what I also hope is that there's sort of a redemptive and I think somewhat cathartic aspect to the way I'm telling the story. I didn't sit down and say I want to write a screenplay that makes people cry. Like I really, but what started happening is friends of mine or even, some of our crew, when I would send them the script, they would send me photos of them crying after they finished reading the script. So I guess that was where I realized, oh, I think this is going to impact people in a way that I really hadn't even thought about.
Well, the movie I'm talking about is As They Made Us. It's your new film, and I've got to say, you can tell that it was lovingly put together. It's very well structured and made. Is it something that you've been working on for a very long time? I am assuming it is.
Not really. It was my first screenplay, and my father of blessed memory died, gosh, 8 years ago.
Right.
And it was a year after he passed that I started writing. I had never written a screenplay. I had never thought to write a screenplay. And I started kind of experiencing images and memories and things that I literally thought, I think I'm supposed to write this, and I had written books and I've written a thesis, like I'm a science writer.
Sure.
I'm a blogger, but I hadn't written screenplay. I didn't even have Final Draft, which is like the program that you write script.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to use that. So, I started writing, didn't plan to show it to anyone. And it took about a year probably after I even wrote it to start showing it to people.
Right.
And, then you sort of go on this crawling process towards making an indie, which is what it was. And I never imagined that Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen would star in it. Simon Huburt from The Big Bang Theory is also in it, and Diana Agron. And Simon was the first person I cast in my head. I guess I wrote it. Yeah, I was still on Big Bang Theory at the time.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the casting. Did you talk to Heidi? Was it her suggestions, or did you have people like Dustin and Candice and Diane in mind, or was it Heidi's idea?
It's kind of like everyone throws names into the bucket of who are the people that could, play these kinds of roles. Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen are like, those are like dream people, I never thought that they would read this script and want to do it. So, you kind of like put it out there, and, everyone who worked on the film had a very specific different personal reason that they wanted to work on it. It's not for me to share people's story, but Diana did share, she grew up with a father who was often ill and was in a stage of his life where she really wanted to work on some of those feelings in a productively creative way. So everyone kind of had their own little reason, but you never know when you're assembling people if it's going to work together. And Simon Helberg had always wanted to work with Dustin Hoffman, so I'm just honored that I got to watch it all happen.
Well, firstly, Diane, I mean, I think that she's an untapped talent. She's not used enough. She's amazing. There's a movie called The Family that she was in that I just brought to the attention of everyone at the time. And I'm really glad that you cast her as Abigail, because her range covers so many areas in this film.
Yeah, she is absolutely incredible. And she, I got to, as director, obviously, I got to experience her, while she was working.
Yeah.
But then in the edit, when I got to sit in the editing and, kind of really start piecing it apart, I got to see all of these things that were going on for her as an actor. And look, I'm an actor, and I was amazed, at how much was going on. She really is. She does a lot of films. She does a lot of, smaller films. She's selective, but she's a very interesting actress and very thoughtful. And she really brought a tremendous amount of love, to this role.
I think that Candice and Dustin, they're both connecting, but they're separate in their own ways. Their performances are separate. They just happen to come together occasionally. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, the funny thing is they grew up, their families were friends when they were kids.
Oh, nice.
So they had, a certain kind of camaraderie and playfulness to them. But, I wrote those characters kind of specifically in that they're very much in love, they're very enmeshed, they're very kind of lovingly codependent, but they do have, a very particular flavor that is very, very different. I think they complemented each other really nicely. And I think part of it is because they did have this kind of natural camaraderie.
Well, I knew nothing about the plot or the storyline or anything when I first started watching it. So I heard Candice and Dustin's characters off screen arguing and swearing at each other. I'm like, this is unusual because it was actually their voices.
Yeah.
So set the tone early on the relationship side of things.
Yeah. And, the film features flashbacks, which, come in and out of style in film. And it was, it's a hard thing to tell so much of someone's childhood story without actually showing it. But, we tried to make it hopefully not too intrusive, that we're kind of cutting back and forth. And then there was this conversation of like, do you cast a young Dustin Hoffman and a young Candice Bergen? So, what we did is we kind of split the difference. We sort of, aged them around and kind of played with it a little bit. But I really couldn't imagine hiring other people, to play these characters that they were, taking such care to play in the present time.
Well, you didn't need money to de-age them through digital. You just had to put a dark wig on Dustin.
I had no money to do anything, and I think that probably shows. It's my first film. I did my best. But yeah, there was definitely some clever filmmaking that we did, and my DP David Feeney Mosier. We did a lot of clever things, and there's a filter on all the older stuff. But yeah, there was definitely some changes to the script, knowing that I would be using actually them.
Oh, for sure, and it works. I mean, just describing Dustin, he's these mannerisms, the way he moves his hands, his messy hair, his sudden bursts of energy, but then other times he's looking blank. You got everything out of him. Well done. I mean, he was obviously into the character, and you were
very into it. No, I appreciate that. I was very intimidated to direct a several-time Academy Award winner. I was mortified and terrified, but he really is. He's an actor who wants to know everything about the character. He wanted to know a lot about my dad. While it wasn't autobiographical, I absolutely molded this character based on my father, who was a really, beautiful, artistic, loving, and very complicated man. And Dustin wanted all that information. He wanted to put that in there. And the scene that you mentioned on the bed, between him and Simon, we did it was actually one long take. I never yelled cut. So what we did is we kind of kept looping the scene, and Dustin just kind of organically started ad-libbing and improvising with Simon. And, Simon, he even couldn't tell, like, is he talking to me? Are we acting? And they just kind of kept looping the scene around and around. So I was able to get some really large chunks that were cohesive.
I was just collapsed back on the couch going, stop, but not stop. Well done.
Thank you.
Are you a different director to how you were an actor, or did you, because you can mold the two, was that helpful on your first feature?
I originally was, looking at resumes of directors that I, could afford and who, would be interested in doing such a small film for a first-time screenwriter, who's a sitcom actor. And, what I mainly kept bumping up against is like, I know exactly in my head what I want things to look like. So for me to then explain that to some, person and then hope that they translate it correctly to the DP. So I kind of accidentally became a director, and really, really loved though, and really got very immersed in the technical aspects of, of what we do. I credit my DP, as I mentioned, with sort of guiding me through that process. But I really, really, really resonated with directing, I think, in many ways more than I did with acting, because I really did get to be in control of all the things that I always want to control, like continuity and, props and all these things. So it was really a level of detail that I think suited my personality very well. But obviously I'm an actor's director, in that, you know,
True.
I feel deeply for the actor's experience primarily.
Oh, that's great to hear, because some directors can be just one-way traffic, and
Yes, I've met them.
yeah, I bet you've worked with them. You met them. Uh, Also, do you have a director's chair with your name on it?
There was a chair. I now just have the fabric, because we filmed in New Jersey and I live in Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
I came back with the fabric that goes on the back. So if I ever do direct again, I already have the back of the chair.
Good, good. And there was a director's cameo as well.
That's right.
You made
My
yourself, you
my
popped
voice
in.
was in it.
You popped in, but I recognized it. So well done there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a couple little Easter eggs in there for sure.
Oh, that's good. It's good. Now, of course, it's such an emotional story, but was there fun on set? I mean, did you keep things light during the
Yeah,
shots?
I mean, there was one day, it was when we filmed that scene, the bed scene,
Oh, yeah.
when you know, we broke a couple spirits, I think, meaning just we had crew that was you know, these are not, you know, in particular, you know, these are not usually men that you see cry routinely, you know,
No,
the the people who schlep and who carry and who, you know, are the labor of a film, are usually not even, you know, always very oriented towards what's going on, like they're doing their jobs.
sure.
So yeah, we had some rough days that just felt heavy, you know, emotionally.
Hmm.
Our script supervisor, you know, who was a wonderful script supervisor, but she said, she's like, that, you know, the two of them dancing, it broke a lot of people. But Dustin kept the set very light. He would
I'm
come in
glad.
every morning, no matter what, say hello to the crew, ask where we're going to be, what are we doing. He literally just like kind of carries a set. Yeah, there was a lot of good times. You know, when you have a small film like that and you have people who are doing it because they want to witness, like Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen and these people working,
Hmm.
everybody was, you know, there because they wanted to be. And I think that you know, we had a very small and very dedicated crew that really wanted to enjoy this process of working with these legends.
As They Made Us is an indie film, and indie films are so important still on the environment, even though streaming and like budget movies are still massive. I think the indie film scene is thriving. Do you agree?
I would like to agree. You know, it was very, very difficult to get. I mean, look,
Funding?
it's difficult to get a, yes, it's difficult to get a film made like
Mm,
this.
mm,
And it's also difficult to convince people that these are stories that people still want to, you know, hear and watch. And I think,
sure.
you know, we filmed this movie during COVID, and I think our culture has had a big shift, you know, in terms of what we need out of our entertainment. And, you know, when I see what's on television and what's streaming, it's a lot of high concept stuff.
Mm,
It's a lot of effects. It's a lot of fancy. And this is not. This is like a story about people and humans and the human experience, which, you know, in many cases is a story that we don't often, you know, hear about as much. You know, families that grow up with alcoholism and with, you know,
mm,
abuse, but also love, and the complexity of you know, growing up with parents who are hurting but
mm.
also trying to love everybody right. So, you know, I believe in storytelling like this, and
Yes.
so I would probably stick with storytelling like this. But yes, these are hard to make.
Well, I'm really glad that you got the funding and people
Thank
believe in
you.
it. It's going to happen again, right? I'm sure you've got something
I
else up your
I
sleeve.
hope so. I hope so.
And as they made us, the title got named in the film, and I love it when the title of the movie gets mentioned in the film. So that was bonus too.
Yeah, that went through many, many iterations,
Oh, did
and
it?
well, I mean, I'm pleased with it. There were other titles that you know, that got thrown around, and I actually was just asked by a Portuguese, you know, kind of distributor if they can rename it, because in Portuguese it doesn't flow very nicely. But yeah, I'm very lyricy with songs and with music, so I like when
Yeah,
lyrics also echo, you know, the
same.
titles.
I always notice it. Maybe As They Made Us will end up being a Jeopardy question down the track. What do you reckon?
I don't think it has been yet, but maybe we'll see.
You can slip it in.
I can try.
By the
Well,
way,
we have a writer's strike, so no one's writing anything right now.
exactly. I was going to ask you that in the current Hollywood situation, you support the strike, and do you see a resolution coming, do you think?
You know, I wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say I support the strike. I support the Writers Guild, you know, as a writer
Sure.
and as someone who is employed by Jeopardy, which is a Writers Guild show. We are absolutely a show that needs writers, even though a lot of people think of us as a game show. We are actually a Writers Guild show. You know, I hope for a swift resolution. It is really, it's crippling to the industry and, you know, to all of the people who are not able to work right now. But yes, I was raised union strong, and I really do hope for a swift resolution and one that respects all of our writers and the things that they need and deserve, especially in an ever-changing writing world.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm assuming before we wrap it up, a day never goes by that the movie Beaches doesn't get mentioned to you. Is that correct?
I think you're the first one today, so I guess not.
Oh my goodness. Well, is that good or bad? I don't know.
It's fine. I mean, people do have a tremendous fondness for that movie. For people who don't know why you're asking me this, I played the young Bette Midler. I was 12 years old, and it came out when I was 13.
Yes.
You know, and that was the movie that changed my life forever. So always glad for people to give it a shout out.
Well, even as a little kid, when I saw it, it brought me to tears, and you're still doing it, right?
I'm just making you cry your whole life.
As an adult. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Final question. Why should Australian audiences watch your film? I mean, I know why, because I've seen it, but in your own words, why should they watch?
Well, I think Australian audiences should watch the movie for the same reason that I think all audiences would appreciate watching this. You know, it is obviously some really incredible acting legends working together in a way that they haven't. And we all have stories like this. We all know a family, or we are that family where someone left and we don't talk about it, or no one knows why. And it's about unearthing dark things to kind of let them have some light. And I think there's a lot of fun in it. And yeah, I'd like to think there's a cathartic, redemptive aspect to it as well.
It might make people think twice about bringing the birthday cake out sometimes.
Well, and also it supports indie films, which we appreciate.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks very much, Shane.
Thanks, Belinda. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.